Welcome to our program with Green Foothills in commemoration of our Stegner exhibition. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm delighted to have everyone here with us this morning. We're going to be talking with some leaders of the environmental movement and people that knew Wally Stegner to some extent and are following in his footsteps. So we think it's a wonderful program to include with our Wallace Stegner Path to Conservation exhibition. For those of you who haven't seen that exhibition yet, I wanted to just share a few photos of it. It is on display in the outdoor area of the museum. This is an outdoor exhibition. Green Foothills has been a partner with us on this exhibition from the beginning. And it was actually the 60th anniversary of Green Foothills that helped inspire why we even wanted to do this exhibition at all. So I am just so delighted to have an opportunity this morning to be with my colleagues at Green Foothills. And it's been great working with both Megan and Lennie for this exhibit. So there is this, this is kind of the beginning of the exhibition, and there's flyers here and pamphlets about all the other, all the environmental groups in the area that are also inspired by Wallace Stegner. And then it's an outdoor exhibition with placards where you can read a little bit about it. And our theme for this exhibition was really on Wallace Stegner's work writing letters in particular. Back when he was working in the 50s and 60s, it had a lot to do with writing a letter. And he was such a good writer that his letters had real impact. So today we're talking with people that continue that work and use lots of different methods to get messages out to the public. Wallace Stegner's method was to write these really impactful letters. So our exhibition includes some information about the particular conservation effort that he was joining, excerpts from his letters, and then these QR codes that people can use with their phones to, in some cases, we have Wallace Stegner reading his letters, which you can listen to, and we also have other video clips and links to video footage about those efforts as well. So that's and then we did do a sort of scavenger hunt for young kids because we know that it is also about the future. It's so important to be able to hand this down to the next generation. So we created a scavenger hunt just to help the younger generation, in this case quite a bit younger, find sort of the particular animals that Wallace Stegner's letters helped to bring attention to, and water conservation efforts and in particular. So, and we've been delighted to, this is after the exhibition, well, we added this beautiful redwood log where people can sit and reflect and really think about place and the importance of place and the importance of being outside. We know Wallace Stegner was an advocate for keeping wild spaces available to people to come, and the value that's added from being out in nature. So this bench will be staying even after the exhibition closes. This weekend is actually the closing weekend of our Wallace Stegner Path to Conservation exhibition. We will probably be keeping it outside for a few more days. We are using this exhibition also for our Margaret Thompson essay contest, which is open to 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Again, trying to bring Wallace Stegner's message to a young generation. And so their essays aren't due until March 10th. So we will probably keep it up during the week. And if this is open 24 hours a day, you can come by and see this exhibition whenever you like. Walk through the grounds of the Los Altos History Museum and experience this exhibition for yourself. So I'm delighted that we have an opportunity this morning to have a program that really helps cap the future of that kind of advocacy work that Stegner started and was quite effective in some of his techniques and what he did. So we have a way to talk about what is going on in the next generation. As I said, we had our essay contest, we have our Pathway Pals, but I'm even more delighted to say that we have our teen docent program. And our teen docents have been so important for helping us bridge the past, the present, and the future. Something the Los Altos History Museum really thinks is so important is to be able to acknowledge where we've been, but also where we're trying to go. So in that spirit, I would like to offer a land acknowledgement to our Ohlone ancestors who were the original inhabitants of this land. Los Altos History Museum rests on the unceded territory of the Ohlone. We have been working closely with Muwekma Ohlone on their tribal acknowledgement. And we know that this area, Thamien, was richly stewarded for thousands of years before European settlers came here, and the environmental degradation that happened in that in the subsequent centuries is one that the Muwekma are working today to try to rectify. And we are very pleased to have had a few opportunities to interact with them and with other representatives from the Bay Area Indigenous peoples, and Los Altos History Museum wants to do whatever we can to help bring knowledge and attention to their recognition efforts, and also to acknowledge that they were the original stewards of this land. What we are all now today, they have asked us to help steward it into the future. And so I'm glad that we can do some small part in that effort. So with that said, I think this program is just so apt for not only the closing of the exhibition, but also the request that the Muwekma have made from us to try to be good stewards of their land. And I'm delighted that we have two wonderful team docents with us here today that are going to be leading the conversation. The museum started a teen docent program back pre-pandemic, and Dylan was involved in it very early on. Dylan, wave and say hi. Dylan Ong is there. Hello, good morning, Dylan.
Hello, my name is Dylan. I'm currently a senior at Monte Vista High School, and yeah, I joined the Teen Docent program when I was a freshman, and I'm just really happy to be here and share on a topic that I care a lot about.
Thank you, thank you. And Audrey is our other teen docent, Audrey Hollenbeck. I'm gonna unmute Audrey. Audrey's been a real leader in our teen docent program. She's been helping with scheduling and with training, and she's just been doing a ton. Audrey, please say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Audrey, and I joined the Teen Docent program in June of 2020 after my freshman year of high school. I'm currently a junior at Mountain View High School, and I really care about the museum and what it does because I really wanted to do service and volunteer things that really impacted my community and really mattered to me. And so it's been really inspirational to me to meet all these cool people like you all, and also to just interact with the community and know the community better. And so I'm really honored to be here with all of you. So thank you.
Well, we are honored that you took time to put together a great set of questions. They've been doing outreach to a lot of the local teen groups, and we are excited to hear your questions and what you've gathered together. So I am actually going to be turning off my video, and we will be having. Okay, we're going to have Audrey and Dylan here, and pin. I'm going to take off myself. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so Audrey and Dylan, please take us to the next segment of our program this morning.
Yeah, so we're going to introduce the speakers. So we have two really incredible guest speakers with us today. And Dylan, do you want to start by introducing Lennie Roberts?
Sure. Lennie Roberts has been a legislative advocate with the Committee for Green Foothills for over 40 years. She joined as a Green Foothills board member in 1968 and has written countless articles for them ever since. To name just a couple of her accomplishments, she helped found the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District in 1972, which has preserved and restored over 70,000 acres of land in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. She was also awarded the Environmental Hero Award by the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter.
We also have the wonderful Megan Fluke, who joined the committee for Green Foothills as executive director in November of 2013. She is extremely passionate about the climate crisis and the harm it causes to humanity. She won the Greenbelt Alliance Championship Award in 2017 and has received awards from the Golden State Warriors and the Santa Clara County League of Conservation Voters for the Green Foothills' successful work on San Jose's Yes on B, No on C ballot measure campaigns in 2018, which saved the iconic Coyote Valley and thousands of acres of open space. So before we go into our questions, I want to just remind everyone that if you have any follow-up questions on anything our wonderful panelists say, or if you have any broad overall questions for them on environmental issues throughout the discussion, you can always type them in the chat and I will write them down and I will add them into the conversation as opportunities present themselves. So just feel free to be part of this discussion as well. And so without further ado, Dylan, would you like to ask our first question?
Yeah, sure. Also, we're going to have a Q&A section, like it's around 10 minutes at the end of this whole presentation. So feel free to ask your questions then as well. So our first question is, for many of us teenagers, the world of activism seems like an impossible field to breach. Like it just seems like there's been so much done and there's been so much that like it seems like something that's impossible to start. So how did you guys become interested in activism and where was your starting point?
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Audrey and Elizabeth, for that wonderful introduction. I'll take the first stab at this question, save the best for last with Lennie. I thank you so much for just hosting today's event and to everybody who's here for joining on this Saturday morning. It's a beautiful day right now, and so thanks for staying inside with us. It's always really special to share space with Lennie. I'll just sort of say that, yeah, just she's the main reason why I came to Green Foothills when I was deciding where my career was going to go, and it's been such a pleasure to work with her over the past decade. So to share my humble beginnings in advocacy when I was in high school, actually around both of your ages, I think you're around, what, 15, 16? Sorry to ask. 17?
I actually turned 18 earlier this year.
I'm so, well, a couple years before that.
No, I'll take
Sorry.
it though.
So I was invited to work on a land use ballot initiative in Fremont, which is where I grew up and where I was going to school. There was a landowner backed initiative. A bunch of landowners in the city of Fremont who owned space on the hillsides wanted to see development on a steeper grade of hillside in Fremont. And I was invited to work on that campaign with the local environmental leaders there. And, I'd never done anything like that before and was out in front of Trader Joe's, telling folks about it. And in any case, we won. And it was, like sort of against all odds, it was sort of unbelievable in a way at the time. And honestly, I was kind of hooked at that point. And I'm happy to say that now when you go to Fremont, all that land that could have been lost to sprawl is all owned by the East Bay Regional Parks District. And people can now go out and hike there. And it's just really, really special. More so, it's, protecting habitat too. So, then in 2007, when I was at San Jose State University pursuing my environmental studies degree, not really knowing what I was going to do with it after school, I learned about the threat to Coyote Valley. And this is an area in South San Jose that probably many of you here know, but it's an area of open space, farmland, wildlife habitats, watersheds. And I found the student group on campus. It was at risk, I'll say that. There was sort of a similar type of story where a bunch of developers wanted to basically build another city there. And I will never forget going to a city council meeting and seeing these amazing, eloquent activists and advocates with Audubon Society and Sierra Club and Green Foothills defending the Coyote Valley landscape. I was just in total awe of them. And little did I know that 5, 6 years later, I would be the executive director of the organization. It all happened very fast, but that's how I got my feet wet. Lennie, please take it away. Your story is so
Well, I started a little bit younger than Megan. When I grew up over in Orinda in the East Bay, and it was a very small place when I was a child. We only had 800 people living there, very, very much in the country. And our family, my grandparents also had bought a ranch up in the Anderson Valley in Mendocino County in in 1923, actually. And our family, they really bought it for the family members to come up and enjoy this wonderful place. It was apple orchards and sheep pasture. And just 3 miles down the road from the ranch was a grove of huge old growth redwoods that were known locally as the Hendy Woods. And the story at the time was that those enormous trees had been too big for the hand saws that were used in the 1880s to cut down the big trees in the Anderson Valley. These were the biggest of the big trees. And so they were spared from the first round of logging on the Anderson Valley. But by late 1940s, early 1950s, technology was making it possible to cut even those giants. And many people were worried about what was going to become of them. So I was 12 years old, and our class went to Sacramento to do the usual trip to visit the legislature. And at that time, it was kind of customary for the governor to come out and say hello to those visiting classes. On that particular day, Governor Earl Warren was not available, but I had a family connection. An uncle knew him. And so I wrote him a letter. My mother urged me to write him a letter about the Hendy Woods. So I wrote a letter to the governor and asked him to do what he could to save those trees. And to my total amazement, and I think my mother's as well, I received a personal letter back from him. And he said he shared my love of the redwoods and would see what the state could do to acquire those big trees. So that was a sort of a key moment of huge gratification for writing a letter. And indeed, ultimately, the state did buy the Hendy Woods, and it's now a state park. And kind of as an aside, Governor Warren, shortly after that, he became the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. And in 1954, he delivered the unanimous ruling in Brown v. Board of Education, which mandated the end of segregation in our schools. So that's kind of it had multiple deep resonance with me, both the trees and then social justice at the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those are really amazing stories, and I think having these concrete successes is something that's super important for somebody just entering the field. Like especially for my generation, we're so into this instant gratification, like with all our social media and stuff, like the likes and the instant results from our actions. So I think we tend to get discouraged a little by things that don't have like promised results and concrete success. So I think it's really important that we see things like this where it's like, oh shoot, like we can actually make a change and we can actually have something that we can contribute to our society in a meaningful way. And I think that's just another thing of why your guys' stories are so inspirational. On another note, what can someone expect from a career in advocacy? Is it a lot of behind the scenes? Is it a lot of lobbying? Like, what exactly goes on?
Lenny, you want to touch on that?
Oh, okay. Do you want? Well, you could talk. Doesn't really matter. What we basically do at Green Foothills is that we work on local land use decisions in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties, at the Board of Supervisors level, City Council level, other entities that may come into play, or the Coastal Commission, or there's other agencies that we will interact with as well. But we focus on land use decisions because that's really where you can make a big difference in what happens to the future of our land and our water, our air, and obviously preservation of our precious open space is part of that as well.
Yep. I'll
I
just
should
add.
also, since
Oh, so
since
go ahead,
Kurt
Lenny.
Riffle is on the call on this Zoom, Kurt is a director of the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, and we also, from time to time, will appear before them and ask them to do, to stress the importance of preserving our natural resources there.
Thank you, Lenny. Yeah, I think it's really good to hear from you on that, given this is what you've dedicated your life to, so many decades. I'll just add that, this work can look like Lenny's work, it can also look different too. It could include, we have folks on our team and, partners at other organizations whose staff do event planning, to get the word out about the work that we're doing, or are fundraising for the work, which can sometimes feel kind of removed, but we need to pay the people who are doing this work too. And so that is a part of the movement. And then there's also, sort of the long-term planning or governance and taking care of a board of, the board of directors and human resources. So, it can look like the on the ground advocacy work that you would expect, in front of a city council or the Mid-Penn Open Space District. But there are so many different types of jobs within the environmental advocacy world.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think um, when I first think of advocacy, the first thing that comes to mind is, the marches and the picketing in front of the White House. And but it's so much deeper than that, and I think it's important that we recognize all these different people that whose work normally goes a little under the radar. Um, I think a related question, what exactly is Green Foothills, and do you have a core core mission for your advocacy?
We do. So yeah, Green Foothills, we were formed in 1962. As you already heard, our founding board president was Wallace Stegner. Our mission is to protect the open space, farmland, and natural resources in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties through advocacy, education, and grassroots action. In recent years, we've also been working as a community advisor in San Benito County, which is further south. So we exist to make sure that natural systems and wildlife habitat has a voice. Without good policy and without strong advocates, so many land use decisions would exacerbate sprawl, decrease biodiversity, accelerate climate change, and also exacerbate systemic inequities. The way that we go about our work is to what Lenny said. We are engaging in local land use issues. As a part of that, conducting, and Lenny will speak to this later, knowing what we're talking about is a big part of the work that we do, and also getting community members to inform our advocacy goals. We educate decision makers and community leaders. We also partner with and mobilize community members. This will look sometimes like bringing community members together around a land use issue. It's not enough just for us to say something. The community needs it's everything. Community support is everything in our work. So making sure the community knows about the work that we're doing and how they can make a difference and engage is a big part of what we do. And then we train, as a part of this, we train and mentor and learn from leaders and communities in equitable and inclusive environmental activism. I just want to add that as a part of our current strategic plan, which we're about midway through, it's a 5-year plan, we're working to grow a more diverse and inclusive conservation movement. Um, the way that we're doing this right now is both by we're advocating for inclusive public processes as a part of everything that we do, making sure that processes are long enough where people can actually engage and people are aware of how they can get involved, and that many communities are consulted as decisions are being made. Um, we also have a leadership development program where we train folks in environmental advocacy. We're holding restorative outings in places that we've protected. And then more recently, we've been to Elizabeth's point earlier on the Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area, and also the Amamutsun tribe further south. We're partnering with these tribes and with the Muwekma Ohlone tribe in particular, providing I serve on their board through wearing my Green Foothills hat and helping to build up their land trust and their vision to steward their ancestral territory.
That's so inspirational how broad the Green Foothills activism, and that's amazing. One thing that I know that you guys really focus on is the open spaces. And so one question is, how are the open spaces that Green Foothills really focus on preserving? Why are they important? Why do we need to conserve them? Why can't they just turn into cities or towns? Oh, yeah.
I can take a quick quick pass at that. This is a very deep topic. Fundamentally, our open space is our life support system. And we're also very connected to nature, although many people may not realize how connected they are. But it is the air that we breathe, the water that people drink. Protection, open space also helps protect us from flooding and erosion if we manage our land properly. It's also a source of our physical and mental well-being. Most importantly, it's one of the most key elements that we must be relying on as we do adaptation to climate change. If we can protect the planet's land and its biodiversity and its ecosystem health, that will that actually is a key component in climate resilience. So in protecting open space, our community and our economy can thrive as well as a result of land use decisions that are made in balance with and respect for nature.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's something that you don't like really appreciate until it's gone. I think I take it for granted that I live right next to Rancho San Antonio. So sometimes I take it for granted that like I have this big open space where I can just relax and be connected with nature, and I can't really imagine it not being there. Um, and then I guess related to Greenfield Hills, could you tell us a little bit about how it was founded? Was there a certain big problem that was trying to be fixed?
Yeah, well, I wasn't around at the founding, but I joined the board like 10 years later. But many of the original founders were still very involved. So if you look back, and I just kind of take you back in time a little bit, back to the 1950s, California was pretty small as far as its population was concerned. There were only 10 million people in California, which is a quarter of what the population that we have now. But the state was booming. World War II had ended, and many people who had come through California to serve in the military wanted to return because it was such a sort of a paradise compared to many other parts of the country. And so after World War II, there were planners and developers and speculators who had drawn up plans in the Bay Area to transform the entire Bay Area into really what would have been kind of, if it had actually happened the way they were planning it, we would have like, an enormous sprawling metropolis, including even filling in the shallow waters of the South Bay, south of the Dumbarton Bridge. There was one plan to fill in that entire area south of the Dumbarton Bridge. Bulldozing the hillsides, making tracts of land for sort of sprawling development, and all the way over to the coast. So as part of that, there was this enormous system of new freeways that were planned to extend like spider webs across the landscape. In fact, where Bayshore Freeway is now, Highway 101, there was going to be another one out in the bay, and then it would be filled in. It would have been east of the SFO, San Francisco Airport. There's going to be a freeway that came down from Brisbane, east of the airport, and all the way down to the end of San Mateo County line, all in the bay. So all of that didn't happen, fortunately. But the people who started worrying about this there were a lot of leaders in the peninsula who began speaking up. They began getting worried, and they started going to city council meetings. And on the peninsula, a band of Palo Alto and Los Altos and the surrounding area activists organized with the purpose of keeping factories out of the foothills. That was basically the Stanford Industrial Park and lands west of Junipero Serra. They were raising concerns that all of the foothills would disappear if there wasn't a more concerted effort made to save them. So in May of 1962, 27 citizens from the original open space battle in Palo Alto regrouped and decided to preserve the foothills, and they wanted to be for something. So they decided on the name Committee for Green Foothills, which was renamed Green Foothills in 2020. Green Foothills' focus has always been to keep a vigilant eye on emerging and ongoing local land use issues that involves open space, the farmlands, the forests, the coast, and other natural resources. When a threat or opportunity arises, we decide how best to meet the challenge, and we partner with other community groups, as Megan talked about. And we actually, in many cases, we empower community groups to have a more effective voice. So, as has already been mentioned, Wallace Stegner was our founding president, and it's marvelous to have such a great exhibit about his work at the museum here. And Megan is going to, I think, speak a little bit more about some of the work that we've been doing. Maybe there's a question for Megan.
Perhaps.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Green Foothills has worked on over 900 land use issues since they were founded. Could you speak possibly of the impact of this work, or, a really short story of, or maybe not short, but a really good story of one, and the lessons that you learned from these?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to. Yeah, so as you just said, Audrey, we've worked on over 900 land use issues since our founding. That's resulted in the permanent protection in 185,000 acres in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. Just a side note, I think everybody here knows, but we don't actually buy the land, but our partners, open space partners, do. But that land wouldn't have been available for purchase had our advocacy not been successful. Also, through our leadership program since its founding a decade ago, we've graduated 9 cohorts. This includes over 240 people in our alumni network, and those folks are advancing into leadership roles and leading their own initiatives, founding their own nonprofits. Actually, I'm happy to say that the 2023 cohort is meeting as we speak right now, and I will be talking about them in a little bit. Yeah, so every single tree, every park, every open space that we see, it has a story, almost always, of protection. For me, I mentioned already the issue of Coyote Valley being an issue just so near and dear to my heart. And I think that, it's one thing to have all these metrics and numbers. It's another, but I think just this idea of like remembering the stories, and I think we're all more moved by stories. So I'll share mine. So, I've mentioned Coyote Valley. It's this area between, I'm actually going to share a picture about on it as I speak. So just give me a second as I see if I can make technology work. There we go. This is a picture of Coyote Valley that I just love. So it's between the Santa Cruz Mountains, and which is what you see off in the distance in the Mount Diablo Range at the southern end of San Jose. It spans over 7,400 acres on the valley floor, and it's about 18,000 acres ridgeline to ridgeline. That first ridgeline you see in the distance to the one where it's taken from here. So it's farmland, it's creeks, it's wetlands, and for us, the most important purpose of Coyote Valley is that it provides a critical path for wildlife. And also flood protection for San Jose residents. and honestly, it's just, as you see here, it's just beautiful. This landscape has been at risk for decades, as I mentioned already. Back in 15 years ago, when I learned about it, it was basically proposed for a city the size of Cupertino. And a decade ago, the politics basically were, it wasn't a matter of if it was going to be developed, but when. So I'm really happy to say that's just for this particular story. And there are some people, like many people here, have been a part of it. I'm looking at you, Kurt. That over the past 5 years, over 1,000 acres have been purchased and permanently protected on the valley floor. And this is thanks to the work of the advocacy community, but of course, the important land acquisition partners at the Peninsula Open Space Trust, the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, and the City of San Jose taxpayers. In 2019, the state of California officially recognized Coyote Valley as an area of statewide importance. There was a historic victory in 2021 for Coyote Valley. After decades of advocacy, San Jose's general plan now prevents urban and industrial development on this landscape. I have to tip my hat to that one, not only to the advocates, but also to Mayor Sam Liccardo, or former Mayor Sam Liccardo at the time. I would say this is a part of his, and he would say is the same, that it's one of his biggest legacies leaving the city. Shortly after that vote, the Santa Clara County passed a climate overlay that basically protects the rest of the valley floor, thanks to the leadership of Supervisor Cindy Chavez. And now the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, who's celebrating their 30th anniversary this year, is embarking on a visioning process so that the whole community can work together to envision this place. So lessons learned, and I want to show one more picture of this place, and also a map. It gives you a feel for how wildlife are moving out of the two mountain ranges, back and forth. So what I learned from this campaign is that persistence and passion does pay off. Also, it was a really complex issue. It wasn't just about the advocates at all. We were a part of it, but it took the policy. It also took funding and the acquisition and the visioning, and most importantly, public support, having people who rallied and time again. And I know many of you here signed those petitions, so thank you, and showed up at meetings. And I'm happy just to say that it's kind of fun. There was news this week that the Monopoly is going to be featuring the city of San Jose in one of its next versions. And we think that Coyote Valley should be one of the big icons. It's a landmark of San Jose. Perhaps it's the free parking corner where folks can just relax and rest. No buying or selling involved.
That's really
So
funny. Oh.
yeah. Oh, well, I was just gonna say, it's so inspiring how it was like so hopeless, and how it was just like, you said it was a matter of when it was going to be developed, not if, to becoming like a emblem of San Jose almost. And I just find that really inspiring. While we're on the topic of Coyote Valley, we have a question about wildlife and how they can cross 101 in Coyote Valley.
They actually, and I definitely want to make sure there's time for Lennie to share her big story, because it's even more like incredible. And the Coyote Valley is just such an amazing win. But there's actually culverts underneath 101. So 101 isn't actually the bigger barrier for wildlife. The more significant barrier is Monterey Highway. But there's work happening right now to improve that. Good question.
Lennie, do you want to share your wonderful story?
Okay, well,
Ooh. You just drop it like that? Nothing will happen. I didn't do anything.
Oopsie daisy. Sorry, hang on just a second, Lennie, we can't hear you. Hang on just a minute. Go ahead and unmute again.
It's more because they couldn't.
Sorry, and we have somebody, hang on just a second. We've got somebody who's been. Go ahead, Lennie.
Well, okay.
Just put a safe driving mode.
Yeah. Okay,
So
go ahead.
Megan just put up a nice picture
All right, stop.
of the coast. And I'd just like to share, I think my most important victory has been the California coast and the Coastal Act. I'm trying to find my notes here. So in 1972, the citizens of California qualified a ballot initiative for the ballot. It was called Proposition 20, which mandated that the legislature come up with a plan for the coast that would protect the agricultural and farmlands and open space while allowing development in the cities and creating a permanent urban rural boundary around those cities so that they couldn't continue to grow beyond a limit that was reasonable for the city to be a functioning, thriving city, and also protecting the scenic qualities of the coast and providing for public access to the shore. In this picture, you can see Highway 1 kind of going through the middle of the land part, north to south. This is just south of Half Moon Bay, about 5 miles. This highway was slated to become a 6-lane freeway between San Francisco and Big Sur. So that was kind of the setting when, and around Half Moon Bay, the population by 1990 was projected to be 100,000 people. And on the south coast of San Mateo County, which this is kind of the transition area to the south coast, another 100,000 people were projected to be living by the year 1990. So the passage of Proposition 20 by the citizens set in motion this marvelous plan that has worldwide significance, because really, if you look at this coastal scene, there's very few places anywhere in the world where you have such protected land so close to an urban metropolis like the Bay Area. We're hoping that agriculture will continue to thrive. This Open Space Trust has acquired very significant amounts of areas. And Megan might want to show the other slide of both open space preserves and agricultural land. And the Open Space District, Mid-Peninsula Open Space District, has also acquired many parcels as well. So you can see protected land in green on this map. San Mateo County had the watershed land and right in the center with the Crystal Springs Lakes and Highway 280 running north and south. And then over on the coast, there's very significant areas of protected land as well. So I think that that's, for me, that sort of set up the most important tool that we have for the coast side, which in San Mateo County is 5 miles wide from the coast up to partway up to Skyline Ridge. So as you go over to the coast and enjoy hiking or riding a bike or driving up and down Highway 1, you'll see a very bucolic landscape, and you'll also be able to go access the beaches, which just wouldn't have happened if the earlier vision had come to pass. So it's a happy thing, but we have to keep working. We have to keep working over and over again to protect land. Various proposals do keep coming up. And so it's, Peter Douglas, former executive director of the Coastal Commission, used to say the coast is never saved. It is always being saved. And that's very true.
Yeah, it's really amazing that you mentioned Pacifica, because I actually went on like a little road trip with my friends there, like just like a month ago, and it was such a beautiful place with like all the untouched beaches and no giant like corporate buildings. So I think it's just it just really makes me appreciate your work and how what an impact it has had on today's world. Um, I guess the next question that we had was about advocacy in general. I think you guys both have a really vast experience in advocacy. And Lenny, I recently read your article about tips for advocates, and one thing that really stuck out to me was how you should never attack another person personally. You should always like just attack not attack, but debate their ideas instead of the actual person themselves. And I think that's something that could really be applied to other parts of society as well and other parts of our lives. So, are there any specific instances where this has helped you?
Um, oh yes, absolutely. We, you know, we inevitably will bump up against people that disagree with us. And there was one big battle in the north part of San Mateo County, San Bruno Mountain, which if people aren't familiar with the area, San Bruno Mountain is surrounded by South San Francisco, Brisbane, Daly City, and San Francisco. It's a great big mountain that sticks up there. It's a relic of earlier time. It's basically an island in time with many rare plants and butterflies that depend upon the habitats there. Back in the early 1970s, developers were proposing to build a city of 10,000 people at the top of the mountain, and they were going to scrape off the top of the mountain and help fill in the bay with all that material as well. Opponents were passionate about preserving this iconic open space, and many opponents at the time were quite abusive in their sort of attacking the developers. We did not do that. That's never been our style. We think that, you can disagree. You can certainly disagree with ideas and policies, but you don't attack the people. So we maintained our civility, and eventually there was a great compromise that was achieved that allowed development next to the cities along the base of the mountain instead, and the top of the mountain has been protected. It's both a county park and a state park. The saddle area at the top where the city was going to be is a wonderful place to go visit and enjoy the trails. So later, when PG&E was proposing to route a high 240 kV transmission line across San Bruno Mountain, the developers and environmentalists, Green Foothills, we were able to join hands with those same people, and we succeeded in getting that power line relocated so it doesn't cross over the mountain. There's some other ones that already were there, so they're still there, but we didn't get this new one. And that particular transmission line is actually undergrounded beneath the city streets along the edge of the mountain. So this was a big win for the environment. Where they wanted to put it was right up some habitat on the side of the mountain. So we didn't burn bridges, and we try very hard to not do that, and it's paid off in many other situations. So that's it. But I think this is a really good example. It's a very tangible example of how we could work together after having been adversaries.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that this is something that also applies to, I guess, any discussions or relationships with anybody, not just within advocacy. I think I've seen it a lot at my school actually, because yeah, people are very competitive there. And like a lot of people get into this mindset where, oh, if I end up like after someone insults them, it's like, oh, if I concede now, it means that I've lost and it's a sign of weakness. So I think that's something that can be really avoided with the advice that you've given. How about you, Megan? Do you have any advice for advocates?
And thank you. And I know that we want to also get to initiatives that we're covering, and I see the question in the chat, so I'm going to see if I can combine it all in one. Um, so one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received is in advocacy to always keep in mind, who do you need to do what, and what do they need to believe in order to do it? And I think a piece of that is, who do you need to do what, and what do they need to believe in order to do it? I think a piece of that is always keeping in mind that sometimes the messenger, it can be more important than the message, or just as important as the message. This gets to another piece of Lennie's advice around like not doing this for one's personal fame or glory. That often we are advising or working with community members so that they're the ones to speak, because it's more powerful to have community members or community partners speak up about issues that we're working on than us. I think that one example of this is the issue that came up in the chat around Sargent Ranch or Uristock. This is the most sacred site for the Amamutsun tribe. It's also like the next Coyote Valley when it comes to wildlife, in that it is 6,400 acres. And when I say the next Coyote Valley, I mean just as important as Coyote Valley for wildlife. It connects the Santa Cruz Mountains to the Mount Diablo Range and the Gavilan Range to the south. It's just southwest of Gilroy. So it's the Amamutsun tribe's most sacred site, the site of their creation story, and it's also a critical wildlife corridor. So when it comes to this message and messenger, for those folks who are swayed by the environmental value of Uristock, then it does make sense for us to speak up and for us to be the messenger. But for those swayed by tribal and cultural issues and issues of social justice, and it means a lot more to have the Amamutsun tribe speak. And I would say more so right now, to Elizabeth's point in the very beginning, with this particular issue, yes, it matters a heck of a lot to Green Foothills. But this is, basically land. This land is family to the Amamutsun tribe. And so, we're more so following their leadership and doing all that we can to center them in this work. So that's one issue that we're working on. And I'm happy to transition over just to a quick overview of some of the other work that we're doing if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. Right before you do that, I just want to tell everyone that I put the wonderful article Dylan referenced about Lennie's 10 tips for advocates in the chat. And I agree very much with Dylan that I've read all the tips and they apply just as much to your everyday life as to advocating. They're very, very influential and important. And so, yeah, I think it'd be amazing. We talked about so many initiatives, but I know there's so many more that Green Foothills is working on. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, just last year we worked on 22 different land use issues, and there's always new ones that come up. One of our advocates, Brian Schmidt, has said once, no matter how many environmental protections there are and good leadership there is, there's always someone out there who wants to do something stupid. So anyways, while in our community there is such an ethos of environmental protection, there are continued threats to the environment, and that's why we're here. So I mentioned Uristock. I talked about Coyote Valley. I want to just quickly direct folks to our advocacy page, and would encourage you to check it out. This is, and I'll put this link in the chat, but it highlights some of our core priority issues right now. So Coyote Valley and Uristock, also the Cargill salt ponds in Redwood City. We need to restore every inch of the little remaining wetlands that we have, restorable wetlands that we have. Lehigh Quarry, supporting the supervisors in the county and shutting this quarry down. And the Ravenswood area and Redwood City, making sure that we're prioritizing community engagement and bayside protection as the city is looking at growth along the bay. And then the Reed Hillview Airport, and working with community members who want to see that airport shut down and have the land repurposed for a part of their vision is around habitat and open space and green space, which is very much needed in San Jose. So those are just some of the issues that we're working on right now. And we have an email that goes out every month with all of some of the other work that we're doing, and try to put out action alerts when there are threats and opportunities to advance open space protection in our region. So I would encourage you, if you're not already, to get on our email list, and I'll put our that link to what I just shared in the chat right now. I encourage you to sign a petition of one of those issues if you feel so moved, or all of them, because we could use your support on all of them. I also mentioned that we have our leadership program. Something really cool is that community members have asked us to translate that program in Spanish. So of the 25 people in the cohort this year, seven of them are Spanish learners, and we have interpretation happening at the same time for both English and Spanish speakers. I have met many of the cohort last month at their first session, And these folks are like, the Spanish speakers are just so happy that this is like happening, and are just like asking, like, can we invite our friends like to come here? Because this isn't the kind of training that, like, we want more of this kind of training. So we're excited about that, and supporting and working with them, because the Spanish speakers are just some of the most powerful organizers I've ever witnessed. We have healing outdoor experiences through our Healing in Nature program. This was something inspired by the chairman of the Amamutsun tribe, who said a few years ago to me that Indigenous and non-Indigenous people alike need to be focusing in on their healing of themselves, with one another, and with the earth. And so this is a new program that we launched last year, and we're continuing this year, and we have an outing coming up next week. And I think, oh, I have to say though, just because it's a Los Altos based organization, I want to highlight that we have alumni from our leadership program who are working in Los Altos. Cheryl Whedon, who there are folks, it doesn't have to be with Green Foothills. There are folks doing such amazing work, as I think everybody here knows, in your backyard. And shout out to our advisory board member, Jane Packard, who's here today, who invites you to transform the Heritage Orchard into inviting urban green space to showcase climate resilience. Shameless plug.
Perfect plug. Thank you so much, Megan. That was that was wonderful. Yes, and Los Altos History Museum has enjoyed doing some environmental exhibits from time to time. I think the wetlands issue is, we had an exhibit here a few years ago called Flyways, and it was just so interesting to learn about how much the migratory birds depend on the wetlands. So okay, so we are at the bottom of our hour that we had scheduled. I don't know if how much Lennie and Megan and our teen docents are willing to sort of stay and chat with people who would like to hang on. I am going to stop the recording, and I just wanted to so just quickly wrap up. Doesn't mean we're closing the meeting, but just to stop the recording and to really say how much I appreciate the efforts of you all, and for you coming here this morning. I think I love the way, Megan, you just do manage to kind of create a sacred space here in this hybrid environment, to have an online program that really felt heartwarming and personal. I'm very appreciative of that, and to hear your personal stories, Lennie. I mean, I was like tearing up listening to what you were talking about. So it was just a beautiful and personal, and I appreciate what your time this morning in sharing your story with us. So I'm going to stop the recording, but we will keep chatting. Okay. Thank you.